What's better than freshly mowed grass? What is up, everyone? I hope you're all doing well today. We have some Sahara dust going over the state of Florida right now, so it is very hot and very dry this week. But today we're going to be talking about how to tell if your goat has worms, deworming schedule, and signs. I want to welcome you guys back to DiamondTrail Ranch. We're going to talk about something that every goat owner needs to know inside and out. How do you know if your goat has worms? How to tell if your goat has worms and how to handle deworming the right way. Parasites are one of the biggest health issues for goats. I mean, that's straightforward. Honestly, they can sneak up on you if you're not careful. While you're watching the goats in their pens today, you know, Mr. Moo. Where is Mr. Moo? Mr. Moo, Calypso, and Twix. He must be with... That's a Ghost, one of our newer ones. Anyway, Mr. Moo, Calypso, Twix. You're going to get them all. Oh, there's Mr. Moo. You're going to get them all in the background. While we go over the most common signs of worms, you need to be checking on your goats every day, at least a couple times a day, even if they're in pens. So you want to make sure you check everything. I'll be going over the most common signs of worms, how often we deworm on our homestead here in Florida, and some tips that have really helped us keep our herd healthy and thrive here. So let's start with why parasites are such a big deal, right? Goats are especially vulnerable to internal parasites, and the most dangerous ones are barber pole worms. Those guys will latch onto the lining of the stomach and suck blood, which leads to anemia. So you're going to be looking for weight loss, you know, that lethargic kind of attitude, you know. It can actually lead to straight up death if it's not treated. So you do want to keep that in mind. Here in warmer, humid zones like ours, Zone 10A in Central Florida, they thrive almost year-round. That's not something you want to hear, right? That's not good news. That's why you got to stay on top of it. Let's talk about the signs to watch for. This is very, very important, guys. Oh, there's Bambi hanging out in the... That's funny. I'll be changing their water here in a second. This pen, we just put them up recently this morning while I mowed. Otherwise, they'd be back out. So, anyway, we'll be swapping that out here shortly. You want to look for the pale eyelids or pale gums, the FOMACHA score. We mentioned that before here on our channel. That's where you pull down the lower eyelid and look at the color. It should be nice, healthy pink. If it's pale, that's usually a sign of anemia caused by worms, especially the barber pole worms. Folks, Twix back here is very pregnant and due any day now. I'll be doing live streams daily to keep an eye on her. Very cool. Another important one you want to keep an eye on their health, right? Pregnant goats. Next, you're going to be looking for weight loss. Even if your goat is eating normally, if their ribs start showing or they lose that fullness around their barrel, that's a red flag. And it's pretty easy to tell too. So look at all the chickens dust bathing and checking for all kinds of bugs. It's awesome. Then there's the rough, dull coat condition, right? This is Bucky over here. A healthy goat usually has a sleek coat. If it starts getting dry, patchy, or messy looking, especially in combination with other symptoms, you should definitely be concerned. Bottle jaw is another one. That's where fluid builds up under the jaw and it looks like a soft swelling. That's usually typically a late stage, you know, sign of severe anemia. So if you ever see that, you guys need to be acting quickly. You might also see diarrhea, especially with a high worm load, but interestingly, not all parasites cause it. For example, the barber pole worms often don't. So if your goat has normal poop but it's pale, or the goat's losing weight, don't rule out worms. You cannot rule out worms. Like I mentioned a minute ago, some goats get lethargic, or they might act off. Maybe they're not grazing as much, or they're standing around more than usual. I always say, goat people honestly know their animals. If your goat isn't acting like herself or himself, like Bucky here, he's all right. He's just chilling. Check on him, you know. So we're gonna shift here to the deworming routines, because this is where things do get tricky. There's a lot of strong opinions about this, but here's what works here at DiamondTrail Ranch. You don't blanket deworm all your goats every month. That old school method has led to a ton of resistance. Enthelminic resistance, meaning the worms get stronger and the meds stop working. You don't want to, that's like any antibiotics, right? You don't want to just keep pumping antibiotics as an example, because you know they don't work anymore. That's just common sense. Instead, we go by, over here at DiamondTrail Ranch, we go by symptoms and fecals, you know. Check their FAMACHA scores. Like I mentioned, you want to regularly keep notes when you pull on their eyelids. If you see a sign like pale eyes or weight loss, we might do a fecal test to confirm. If we don't have the time, something's going on or whatever, we'll go ahead and treat based on symptoms. But we don't just throw dewormer at a whole herd for no reason. You never want to do that. Man, there's something about freshly mowed grass, isn't there? Awesome, awesome. When we deworm, we rotate between 3 main classes of dewormers. The first one's the benzies, like valbazen, microcyclic. Which guy is this? Oh, hey. Sorry. The valbazen, and the macrocyclic lactones, like ivermectin. Everybody knows ivermectin. Nicotinic agonists like prohibit, levamisole. You never want to just stick with one kind. That's how you get resistance. So you're going to rotate your types, rotate your brands, rotate everything. Here's something not enough people do talk about also, is proper dosing. Goats metabolize medicine faster than sheep, so the dosage is higher. If you underdose, you're basically training the worms to survive. Guys, we want to love on these animals and be friendly with them, right? They're happy, they're nice. So you want to weigh your goats accordingly, estimate their weight accurately as possible, and always dose, you know, the right way. Some people do use natural dewormers, like garlic, pumpkin seeds, diatomaceous earth, or herbal blends even. So we've used a few of these as preventatives, but you know, I wouldn't honestly rely on them alone in a serious case. Because they can help lower the parasite load and boost gut health and all, but when you're dealing with like barber pole worms, you need the heavy hitters, you know what I mean? So also after deworming, we will often recheck. I would say probably 10 to 14 days to see if they work. So you can do this with a follow-up fecal, or just monitor signs. Of course, if the goat's bouncing back, you're going to get some more energy, which is always a good sign. Pinker eyelids, absolutely, and improved appetite, like Bambi eating her hay right here. That's always a good sign. Appetite's like a big key, in my opinion. Just when they're thriving, kind of walking around, being happy, like her, Dolly. This is Dodie goat. Hi, Dodie. We call her Dodie because one of the boys, he calls her Doe. He used to call her Dodie when he was only 3. He said, hi, Dodie. Her name's Dolly. We're going to talk about prevention for these, because preventing worms is so much easier than treating them after the fact. Let's be honest here. We move our goats between pens regularly. You'll see that in our videos. We're different goats are in different pens all the time. So you want to avoid overgrazing. Worm larvae can live in the lower 2 inches of grass. So if they're constantly grazing short stubs, they're more likely to pick up parasites. We also clean pens regularly. You don't want to let your water you know, get really green and gross, like this bad example I have. Hey man, just being honest. So I'll be taking care of that here shortly. A dirty pen is a breeding ground for parasites, especially in warm and wet weather like we get here in Florida. Honestly, just good management and rotation makes a huge difference. And a little tip, copper blasting goats also help. Copper deficiency can weaken the immune system, making them more vulnerable to parasites. We bolus ours every few months, depending on the brand, and it's made a visible difference in their coats and energy levels. Let's not forget, goat genetics matter too. Some breeds and even individual goats are more resistant to worms. If you are breeding goats, select for strong parasite resistance. Don't keep breeding animals that constantly struggle with worms. So if you're new to goats and feel overwhelmed by all of this, don't stress. Once you get into a routine of monitoring FOMACHA, keeping your pens clean, you know, rotating dewormers when necessary, it becomes second nature, really. So, and most importantly, get to know your goats. The more time you spend watching them like you're doing now, you know, just watching these calm moments in the pen, the easier it is to spot when something's not right, especially if you're doing it, you know, it's, you know, a couple times, 3 times a day. Hang out with them, you know. I will say that if you like this video, drop a comment below. Let me know your go-to worming routine, or if you've ever dealt with barber pole worms on your homestead. And please don't forget to hit subscribe for more homesteading tips, daily goat updates, and life here at DiamondTrail Ranch. I want to thank you for hanging out with us today. Me and the goats appreciate you. See you on the next one.